Hey folks, this is Kalani. Gearing up has always been an important part of World of Warcraft, and in Shadowlands we have more valid options than we've seen in quite a while. You can go all in on dungeons, PvP or raiding, and collect some awesome loot no matter which road you choose. But is one form of endgame better than the others? And what should you do if you want to prioritize gearing up quickly? Well, that's what we're going to go through in this video, the fastest and easiest ways to gear up in patch 905 and how to reach those higher item level brackets. Let's get started. The fastest way to get a quick head start on your gear right after dinging level 60 is to look at crafted gear. You can craft this gear yourself if you really want to, and you have access to the professions, or you can just pop by the auction house and buy up whatever you need. Sure, it's going to cost you a few thousand gold, but it will save you oodles of time in the long run, and the faster you can gear up at the start, the smoother everything else will be. Better gear means you deal more damage, your heals are more effective, or you stay alive longer as a tank. That means an easier time doing solo content or dungeon content or even battlegrounds, which is where we'll be gearing up for the most part. You can skip over buying crafted gear for your character, but it will end up taking much longer as a result. Crafted gear can get your item level up to about 170 right away, which is going to be significantly better than any leveling or questing gear you've been running around in until now. Something you should try to get done every week on your character that you want to gear up is the world boss. Open up your map and look for a shiny purple world quest. That is the current world boss. You can kill a world boss once per week per character, and you have a chance to get some shiny item level 207 gear. That's probably the fastest gear with a good item level that you can pick up if you're lucky enough to get loot. Thankfully, the world boss only takes about 5 minutes, so it is always worth doing, even if it's not guaranteed loot. They can also drop some really good conduits, so keep an eye out for those as well. The next most important thing I would say to look at each week is the current weekly event. This can really kickstart your gearing depending on which event is active. The Mythic Dungeon event, for example, rewards you with a piece of 213 item level gear for completing the quest. That's pretty insane for a guaranteed free piece of gear. The Time Walking event gives you a piece of item level 200 gear, not quite as shiny but still way better than nothing, but even the Battleground and Arena Skirmish weekly events are valuable because they reward you with Conquest, which unlocks higher item level rewards from the PvP vendor. The only two weekly events which don't really help towards your gearing goals are the Pet Battle event and the World Quest event. The rest are always worth doing. I'd say your first big gearing goal should be to hit around item level 200. That's where things start to significantly slow down and take more time, so let's get to that point first. I would say the fastest method for hitting this milestone is different from the easiest method. The fastest method is to run dungeons. Well, I guess that's technically not correct. The actual fastest way is to get boosted through dungeons. If you have friends or guildies who can help carry you through Mythic Zeros or even some lower end Mythic Plus dungeons, and even better, if they can play the same armor class and funnel you loot, that's the absolute fastest way to gear up, but that's not really realistic for the vast majority of players, so we'll call that a bonus if you have friends and move on. As I was saying, I think the fastest way to gear up is through dungeons. Mythic Zero dungeons can be done with just crafted gear, and they'll drop item level 184. You can run Mythic Zero dungeons once per week and get loot, and if you do all of them, you should walk away with quite a few upgrades. Then you can move into Mythic Plus. Running a +2 or +3 key is pretty easy, and you're guaranteed 2 pieces of loot to split between your group at the end, and you won't have to deal with any extra affixes. If you move up to a +4 key, the affixes start to make things a bit harder, so while gearing up I would try to stick to Mythic Zero dungeons and try to do 2s and 3s as often as you can. Starting a group from your own key is the best way to go, and because every level of dungeon gives the same amount of valor, a lot of higher item level players are actually signing up and plowing through +2 and +3 keys because it's super easy and fast valor for them. So starting your own group has never been easier. +3 keys will also drop item level 190 gear, which will help you quickly climb to that item level 200 goal. Every Mythic Plus dungeon you complete also gives you 135 Valor, which you can use to upgrade your dungeon gear, even gear you get from Mythic Zero runs. Without any real progress in Mythic dungeons, you can upgrade every piece to item level 200, so you can get there fairly quickly if all you do is run dungeons. If you're looking for the easiest way to gear up, I'd say farming honor still takes the cake. It might not be faster, but you don't have to rely on other players quite as much for your own progress. So if you want to be able to randomly queue into a type of content, walk away with at least some progress even if you don't win, and eventually work towards all the gear you want, random battlegrounds or arena skirmish still let you do that. There's no item level requirement. No one can deny you from joining. You get honor whether you win or lose, and honor is the only thing you really need for this gearing up path. You can queue up for random battlegrounds, random epic battlegrounds, or arena skirmishes to earn honor. Arena skirmishes are faster, they can be over in less than 2 minutes if it's a quickie, while battlegrounds will take it a bit longer to play out. The more you win, the faster you'll earn honor, so the faster you're going to gear up, but at the end of the day, as long as you're doing something, as long as you're signing up, working your way through it, ending that match, you will get honor and you'll be able to slowly work towards any reward you want. I also feel like running through any casual, unrated PvP is a lot less stressful than something like running through Mythic Plus, because no one's really watching for you making any mistakes, and you can kind of do your own thing. Now once you've got yourself some honor, you can take that to the PvP vendors, buy the piece you want, and then upgrade it as high as you can with more honor. They don't start very high, but you can get them up to item level 197 just with upgrading them with honor points. So you can pretty much reach your item level 200 goal with just random battlegrounds or arena skirmish. It's definitely one of the easier ways to gear up, but it can take quite a lot of time. If you decide to go with the PvP route, be sure to pick up any weekly PvP event quests, as well as the weekly PvP quests that can be found by the PvP vendors. All of these quests will reward you with Conquest, which can be used to buy even higher item level gear. You also get Conquest from various daily wins, like the first random BG you win, or the first random epic BG, or first arena skirmish. Pretty much everything on the unrated PvP list actually can help you earn a bit of extra conquest. If a brawl is currently active, that's an awesome way to earn a bit more as well. If you aren't focusing on rated PvP, your conquest earnings will definitely be slow, but you don't need that much to buy a few pieces of gear. Pop by the conquest vendor every once in a while and see what you can afford. These items start at item level 200, so they're going to be great upgrades no matter what. Now there are a few other gearing options in here. You can run heroic dungeons to bridge the gap between crafted gear and mythic dungeons. Personally, I don't think it's really worthwhile because the gear rewards are just as reliable as mythic dungeons, but lower item level. Mythic dungeons are also fairly easy with all things considered, so I feel like heroic dungeons are very inefficient time-wise. The same goes for Raid Finder. When you get to item level 170, you can start queuing for Raid Finder wings. Raid Finder bosses can drop item level 187 gear. This is just a teeny bit higher than Mythic 0 dungeons, but you're far less likely to get loot in Raid Finder, and you don't have the added bonus of being able to upgrade it with Valor. Raid Finder can also take quite a long time to get through, depending on what kind of group you get. So again, time-wise, I think it's just really inefficient if all you want is higher item level, and you'll be much better served with Mythic 0 dungeons or Mythic Plus. Now, if you don't want to do dungeons or PvP or anything really group related, you do still have a few options available to you, but most of them rely on your renown level. As you increase your renown level by completing your weekly quests, running dungeons, battlegrounds, and completing your callings, two things are going to open up to you. The first is more Covenant campaign chapters, which reward higher and higher item level gear as you work your way through the story. All of these pieces of gear can be upgraded with Anima up to a maximum item level of 197. This might not be the best use of your Anima currency, but it's one of the only ways you can upgrade gear outside of the typical dungeon/PvP/raid treadmill. Higher renown levels also unlock higher item level rewards from world quests, so be sure to check your world quests every now and then for upgrades. You never know when something shiny might pop up. Another source of gear people skip over a lot is the mission table. Believe it or not, if you work your way through the mission table campaign thing, some gear rewards start popping up. I'm not too sure if you need to have the appropriate renown to up your world quest item level as well, but I see plenty of 190 plus items as reward for missions, so that's maybe something else to look into if you want to stay solo. And then the last source of gear for solo players would be calling boxes. An epic calling cache has a chance to contain some gear about the same item level as your world quest rewards, and I believe the rare cache has a chance, but it's significantly lower. It's not super reliable, but it's at least something. I'll be honest with you though, item level 200 is probably the highest you can get without stepping foot into group content. From this point on, you have to head into raids, higher Mythic Plus dungeons, or rated PvP. All of that is going to require a group. So if you really don't want to do any of that stuff, I wouldn't worry about gearing up much further. I'd focus on other areas of the game that you have fun with. You can still get some pieces of conquest gear as you collect that currency slowly from quests and such, but for the most part, I'd just wait for patch 9.1 to increase the item level of every reward system in the game. I believe I remember the devs saying they wanted to provide more options for solo and outdoor world content players in patch 9.1, so you might have additional things to work towards in the next major content patch. But for anyone willing to do anything to push past item level 200 and work their way up to 220 and above, the single most important thing you can do each week is to populate your weekly vault. You can earn up to 9 item options in here, and obviously the more you get, the higher the chance of getting a sweet upgrade, but try to make sure you get at least one of these options filled in. Running one Mythic Plus dungeon is by far the easiest and most rewarding option here because of the item level bump you get for a weekly reward. For example, if you run just one +5 dungeon, your weekly box will have an item level 210 piece of gear waiting for you on reset day. That's almost a heroic raiding piece of gear, or the equivalent of a +15 dungeon piece of gear. That is crazy. For comparison's sake, you have to kill 3 heroic raid bosses to get an item level 213 piece of gear on that top row. Completing a +5 dungeon is way easier than killing 3 raid bosses on heroic, so you can see how easily you can increase your potential item level with just a single dungeon run each week. At this point, we're into the typical WoW treadmill. Exciting, I know, except now pretty much any of the 3 main sources are individually worthwhile, which is pretty cool. With the Valor change, dungeon rewards became more reliable, raiding has always rewarded you with high item level gear, if you can push into heroic and mythic difficulties, and PvP has an incredibly robust gearing system right now, so it doesn't have to rely on any other areas of the game. I think the easiest, and in most cases the fastest way to gear up at this point is to stick with dungeons. Just keep doing the same thing you've been doing except on higher key levels. As you get higher, you'll need to deal with more affixes, which makes things quite a bit more difficult, but as you learn each dungeon and the mechanics become second nature to you, climbing key levels really isn't that hard. You'll get some sweet loot along the way, and you can upgrade everything to 213 if you're able to clear every dungeon on a +10 key or above. Push that up to a +15 in every dungeon and you can upgrade to 220 item level just from running dungeons. I know a lot of people think they can't do this, or it takes too long or too much effort, but honestly, if you start by running the dungeons on lower keys and learning the mechanics, then slowly working your way up, anyone can do higher Mythic Plus keys. It's much easier if you can get a group together and progress together and learn together. That's the key, but even the pug life isn't impossible. I believe in you. Go give it a shot. You never know until you try. Now, raiding is the same old deal it's always been. If you have a guild that raids and you have a reliable schedule, raiding can offer you some amazing gearing opportunities. Heroic raids drop item level 213 pieces, and if you can get into mythic raids, they drop item level 226 pieces. And that's not including the item level bump you get at the end. I'll be honest with you, finding a good guild to raid with is hard. It is very hard. It's even harder to find a good mythic guild, and mythic raiding is, in my opinion, significantly harder when compared to running +10 or +15 keys. The rewards are higher for sure, but it takes a lot of time and effort to get through mythic raid bosses. Heroic raid bosses are a bit easier, and 213 gear will still be a good upgrade if you're rocking item level 200 stuff, so maybe start there and see how you go. I definitely don't think raiding fits the bill of fastest or easiest gearing method though. And then we have rated PvP. This one is a bit strange because earning your gear is very different from upgrading your gear. You can buy item level 200 gear from the Conquest vendor, and all you need is Conquest. You can get Conquest from the various smaller sources we talked about earlier, but the main reliable source of Conquest is taking part in rated PvP content. This means arenas or rated battlegrounds. PvP is really hard to rank when it comes to difficulty because you're fighting other players. At the lower ends of rated PvP, it's not too hard to win a few games. At the highest ends of PvP, it's probably some of the hardest content in the game because the skill cap goes so high. The good news here is that you don't have to make it all the way to the highest tier to get some decent gear out of it. You can earn Conquest by winning in those lower ranks, which will let you buy the item level 200 pieces from the vendor. Upgrading them is a different matter though. To upgrade Conquest gear, you need to get a higher PvP rating. It doesn't matter whether you get this rating in 2's arena, 3's arena, or rated BGs, but you need to get your rating up in some form of rated PvP to be able to upgrade your gear at all. I have heard that rated battlegrounds are one of the easiest ways to try and rank up here, especially if you're trying to pug through this, but if you can get up to 1400, you can upgrade to item level 207. At 1600 rating, you can upgrade to 213, and to get 220 gear you need to reach 1800 rating. 1400 isn't too hard because you have a huge grace period where you don't lose rating even if you lose a game. So as long as you keep winning, 1 out of 10 games, you will eventually get there. So it could take a while, but at least there's a goal in sight. 1600 and 1800 are a bit of a different story though. You'll have to put in effort to learn your class inside out and win more than you lose. If you really get into it and you love rated PvP, you can actually upgrade your gear to 226, and some pieces go as high as 233. So the rewards are definitely there, but it's definitely not easy and it's definitely not fast. If you want some easy gear, I would stick to dungeons and make sure you get something out of your weekly chest each week. The more the better on that Mythic Plus dungeon row. That's my advice if you want to get up to 220. If you're happy sitting down at item level 200 until the next patch rolls around, that's completely up to you. But I hope this video helped lay out your different gearing options as well as explaining what to expect as you get higher item level gear. What type of content do you enjoy doing the most in WoW at endgame? Do you have a guild you raid with, a group of friends you run Mythic Plus with, or do you love smashing skulls in rated PvP? Or are you the kind of player who relies more on open world content to gear up? And do you wish there were more options for gearing up at those higher item levels? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to everyone who has subscribed on Twitch. You can see their names floating by on screen. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.